So we're between the drinks and all the demos, so we'll try to make it quick.
We'll jump in. So what is new payments, Colleen?
So really, at Mastercard, I'm responsible for driving growth and revenue from payments that are not consumer-oriented. So you think about Mastercard being very much a consumer brand, focusing on consumer-driven activities. My role is to how to grow business payments. And so I spent sort of 20 plus years in the treasury management, merchant acquiring fields, and I'm at Mastercard working to find out how we can actually make more money on B2B payments. So that last panel, beyond the consumer, really that's my role at Mastercard, and we're actually doing some really neat things. And we think we can get there faster by not creating everything in-house, but instead by working with smaller companies that are very much focused on our area of expertise.
So how do you do that? How do you work with fintechs and small firms?
So listen, I've actually been at Mastercard for just a little north of a year. Prior to that, I was at Capital One. I spent 8 years there. And the idea is actually, how do you marry scale and agility? The scale that a bank has, really customer scale, marketing scale, operation scale, risk management scale, that scale really matters when you think about how you monetize your invention, your new product, your new service, et cetera. What smaller companies bring is the agility. It's if you say something, I can actually code it and make it different within a couple of weeks. And inside of, a big bank, you say you want to make a change, and it's like 18 months. And you cannot be innovative when things take that long in big companies. And so the way we do it at Mastercard, and I've done that now for about 10 years, is actually look for spaces where scale matters, right? But agility matters just as much. And to work, look for companies that can bring a nice solution together where scale and agility makes a solution for clients that there's a willingness on the part of a buyer to actually buy the solution.
So that's interesting because Mastercard is broadly consumer focused, right? And digital focused. But your focus is with business, right? So do you ever see technologies or innovations that start in the consumer space migrate successfully to the commercial space?
Yeah, I think there are plenty of examples of that. If you look at the P2P space, whether that's what's happened with Venmo and PayPal, and increasingly Zelle and other players that are doing consumer payments, the next big step will be how do those consumers pay bills, right? And so you'll see each of those players actually start to offer to the consumer an experience where you can pay your friend who you just had dinner with, right, and split the bill or what have you. Or you can actually now pay your rent, pay your psychiatrist, pay your utility bill on the same way. So that's the consumer experience jumping over into a business payment, a receivable. And then I think what happens is actually businesses want the ease and customer experience that they have as a consumer to jump over into business payments.
So how is that done successfully? Would you have a recipe for entrepreneurs? We've got a mix of entrepreneurs here and folks on the other side who may be shopping from entrepreneurs.
So, the advice I give to folks when thinking about working with a big company is just understand how big companies work. They're slow. It's not gonna happen overnight. You're gonna have 10 meetings sometimes to actually get to a decision. Like, be ready for that. I've seen really entrepreneurs wilt under the bigness of working with a company like Mastercard, Capital One, Wachovia. I used to work for Wachovia here in town. So just be ready for the fact that you have really committees and risk committees and internal stakeholders that you have to convince that your solution is going to help them address a consumer need. One of the things that I've seen work really well in the past couple of years is actually for an entrepreneur to come in with just a simple ask to do a proof of concept. Like, I'm not looking to be your answer to all your questions in this space. I'd just like to do a proof of concept with you, find a customer, particularly in the B2B space, where we can actually test this out and see if it works. Or you already have a few customers, they look like similar customers to that financial institution or that bigger company, and you just test things out. I think the mistake that big companies make and small companies make is they try to go kit and caboodle to a full implementation, and all of the risk management steps and onboarding steps, again, the big company crushes the butterfly of the small company, and then you don't have as many great success stories. I can think of, when I was at Capital One, we actually worked with a company called Transactus, and that was really faced off against bill payment, the business part of bill payment. And we started out with like a commercial agreement, a proof of concept. It was like a really small space. We had success there. And then we could actually start to take advantage of the scale, sell to more customers. Eventually, what we ended up doing is investing in the company and then moving that to a bigger part of our solution suite. So starting out small and then really having a plan to how that could get bigger.
So you had an interesting phrase, and so I want to just check in with the room here. How many people would consider themselves employees of, we'll say, the big company? Okay. Now, how about the small butterfly? Hands? Okay, of those butterflies, who feels like they've been crushed? Okay.
You'll know it.
I see some hands.
So when you go to the 10th meeting and you're demoing again and you're ready to make money, right? And you can't get quite to implementation. That's when you feel like the butterfly's been crushed.
Who's crushed the butterfly? Oh, me. Yeah, I'm in that group too. Full admission. Now, Colleen, you've spent 27 plus years in
Don't tell
banking.
the number. Then people do the calculation and know how old I am.
She was a child prodigy.
Yeah. Started doing this stuff when I was 3. Okay.
3. Yeah. Mozart of financial services here. But anyway, with lots of tremendous experience, can you share about a memorable collaboration you've witnessed or been a part of between the big company and the little fledgling butterfly?
So I'm going to actually tell you about a failure, because I think there's great learnings around this. This is, again, at a prior employer. And this was a company that just had a whiz-bang solution that was working. They were gaining momentum, and actually through their own distribution channel, which was very much focused in on real estate companies, created momentum, selling their product, getting it into the hands of the real estate companies who were buying this thing. And they thought, we should be working with a bank, and your bank does a lot of kind of real estate stuff, and this is going to be awesome, right? And we love the solution. Great UI, great servicing model, kind of really pretty good cultures. Everything seemed to be going well. And we weren't looking to acquire them. We were just looking to resell their solution. They came to us. We spent a lot of time understanding the solution. And then when it came time to, we're going to put our name on it and we're going to resell it, we had to do a risk review. And I was a little bit far away from the actual details of the risk review, but I got a report. There were 128 findings. Like a binder this big. We went to this meeting. I'm like, oh my God. And some of the things were really big. Like there were data security issues, and there were real issues here. And quite honestly, I had to call that CEO and say, listen, we're not going to be able to work with you. There's nothing you can do in short order that are going to address these big concerns, because of the 128, like 40 were high risk, right? So there was nothing that I could do being in a regulated entity where I was going to be able to say, yes, we're going to be able to move forward. What I love about this entrepreneur, he then used that 128 findings as his roadmap to get ready for when he needed to work with a financial institution. He just started ticking away at those items. And actually, in the end, he addressed almost all of them because we kept in touch. We're still in touch. And as he did that, he got ready and in effect, signed with a different bank before he signed with my bank, which was a little upsetting. But he wouldn't have been ready for them if, in fact, we hadn't gone through that process. And subsequently, getting VC backing, eventually being acquired by a great another payments player, and quite honestly, he's in a very good spot and has a successful company. So why am I telling you that? I think one of the things that small butterfly folks, just be prepared to know what are the things that are going to be really important to the partner you're looking to partner with. If it's a healthcare company, you've got to be, you have to pay attention to HIPAA, right? And so, don't pull together a solution and you haven't gone through assessing whether your solution's HIPAA compliant and it's going to be able to meet the minimum hurdles. If you're going to go and actually want to partner with a bank, you're going to be, on the consumer side, all the consumer protections, you're going to at least need to meet a minimum threshold before that bigger institution is going to be able to work with you. If you don't, you're wasting time if you kind of don't address the bare minimum. And I've seen that mistake quite a bit where the focus is around sort of the UI and the great, consumer experience, but you're not ready to work with that bigger institution because they have to be scale ready on the risk management and compliance side of things.
So the example you shared is a beautiful example of mentorship, and that's one of the hallmarks and the pillars of QC FinTech, one of the organizers of today's event. And so thank you for that demonstration. I know all the founders in the room, see that as the epitome of mentorship. So thank you for being a mentor out in the FinTech universe. And did I hear that you may have mentored or at least talked to Ripple early on in their
I
trajectory?
can remember, again, at a prior employer, I would say it was 9 years ago. No, it was probably 2011 or 12, and I had a meeting with Ripple way back when where, they were really throwing up on whiteboards, like their product concept, how it worked, et cetera. And at that point, I'm used to run correspondent banking at Wachovia down the street, know quite a bit about FX, et cetera. And it was really clear that kind of the depth of understanding some of how foreign exchange markets work, how market maker, they just really didn't know it all that well. One of the things I think you also have to invest in is actually getting deep on the expertise required to kind of know how you would want to scale the solution and how it should work. What I like about those folks is actually when we started asking questions about the solution, recognized actually there were some gaps there. They called and said, can you spend a couple of days with us? We did that. And I think in the end, I wouldn't want to point to their success being in any way something that I did, but I think it put them on the right path to know how, in fact, they would actually have to engage and work with financial institutions, where the depth of questions would come from, and that they would have to beef up some of the areas of expertise in order to kind of get to scale.
So what you've described sounds like a spirit of generosity between the big institutions and maybe the little upstarts who maybe have an idea but don't know quite how the plumbing is arranged. Would you say that that's a necessary hallmark for a successful collaboration, some sort of generosity and sense of sharing?
Listen, when I think some of the disruptive fintechs were coming about, I remember being on the sort of deposit committee over here at Wachovia, and we were talking about PayPal way back when, and we had an assignment. We all went home and tried to open a PayPal account, and I still have the same account, right? I went home, opened it in 5 minutes, whatever, and said, guys, we're in trouble, right? This is a great experience. It's gonna work. Back then, the bigger companies viewed smaller companies as the enemy. I think the whole sort of mindset has shifted, and this idea of we have scale, you have agility, we can work together bringing solutions to the market is pretty much, that's actually been adopted by many of the large players. And the only way it's going to work is if there is the spirit of generosity that you, either through formal programs like Mastercard has our Smart Path program, where it's sort of an incubator, but we actually also focus in on beyond incubation. We want to get you in touch with real banks, financial institutions, and get you your first clients so you can get to scale. I think that's the next level of mentorship. It's not just about how you put your business plan together and create your product. It's really how do we get you access to clients so that your product scales and we can then leverage it and use it to drive financial value. So I think that's the next thing. The mentorship is going to go beyond business plan and really get to enablement.
Well, that's so key. And a little side note, thank you to all the sponsors and mentors as part of QCF, because as you've just outlined, that's make it or break it for a lot of these small butterflies. Now, shifting gears a little bit, across your storied career, you've worked at various players in the payment ecosystem, from banks to networks to associations. From your point of view and experience, is there any difference between those organizations from a fintech standpoint as far as who might be easier to work with? Is a network easier than a bank, say?
I would say follow the money, right? It's really easy. I was the vice chair of NACHA for a long time. NACHA's a nonprofit. Right, so it's, there are partnership opportunities. I love those guys. I think they create the right environment for standards. But in terms of really where you want to make money, that's probably not going to be exactly where you want to end up. You want to go where you can find an end customer that's actually going to pay for your solution. So I think sort of association like standards bodies, et cetera, probably not going to get you to scale as quickly as you would with some other types, at least in the financial services arena.
Does that mean there's an open space, blue sky, is less competition?
Listen, I don't know. There seems to be a little bit of an unwillingness to pay for standards and things of that nature, right? And that's like the common good, right? The economic good. And so bodies that are quasi-governmental kind of serve that purpose. But I think institutions like Mastercard and those other folks on the left coast, they have huge scale, access to many different financial institutions, and you can follow the money to a path where an end customer will want to pay for the solution. If it's the consumer, sometimes it's actually the business that's paying for the product, or it's actually somehow they've built the economics into the deposits that you can grow from a consumer base. But you've got to really follow the money in your economic model to ensure that there's a willingness for payment to actually occur. That people won't just get wrapped up in the UI and the consumer experience, but there's a willingness somewhere in the ecosystem that someone's going to write a check, right? Or better yet said, because I'm also responsible for real-time payments at Mastercard, they're going to actually send the payment electronically.
Nice. Yes, let's get paper out of the system. So that's a good piece of advice for the smaller companies, the startups, the fintechs. What advice would you give the larger companies in working with and nurturing the growth of a butterfly?
I think it's similar advice with regards to this proof of concept. Before you get your risk committees and your investment committees and your new product approval committees all whipped up into a frenzy, if you can actually start to talk more about, hey, we're going to test and experiment, we're going to have proof of concepts that we want to just explore, we're not going to expose our customer base to lots of risk, et cetera, then you're more likely to have your innovation labs or your innovation pods or what have you get a lot more done. And you're going to have to test a few things for something to stick. What I think big companies, if you spend so much time trying to work through all of the sort of bureaucracy to get the solution out, then what if it fails, right? If you can really limit it to, hey, we want to test a couple of things or keep the exposure limited, that can work. And then you find the thing that's going to be awesome, and then you put the investment into how to scale. But you work on that together, then you're going to have more success.
So we have a few minutes left. So I want to ask the million-dollar question. What would make a large Fortune 500 company receptive to a fintech? And you've talked about proof of concepts and being prepared, but how does a startup or a fintech get that initial foot in the door?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm on the board of Avid, and they've done a super job of actually creating a momentum, and they were able to bring proof points to an institution like Mastercard, and we made a large equity investment in them around we have momentum, revenue momentum. We're winning deals. We are actually penetrating segments in a major way. So the more you're able to prove that your product is actually beyond just an idea and that it's actually solving a problem you have found, identified, and you are receiving money, right? Then that's how you convince folks. You're solving a real problem for an end customer. There's an economic value somewhere in that ecosystem. And there's a willingness to partner in how the scale of the big company and the agility of the small company will work together for a path forward to success. I think that's how you do it.
So it's all about the money.
I have always thought that. But again, I think one of the prior panelists talked about consumer experience is going to be a big part of it. I do think that's there, but you can invest a lot in consumer experience and in the end not get paid for it. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of the P2P applications are migrating to more sort of C2B applications, because the money really is where business will pay for something and consumers are a little less willing. So, I mean, I think if you guys want to, have your companies really be successful, like thinking through who's going to pay for this and why, I think that's pretty important.
I love it. Go capitalism, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So with just a couple minutes left, I want to shift gears. Colleen, when we've talked, it became apparent to me that you're an observer of business cycles, from .com to Great Recession. How would you characterize this particular moment in fintech?
Oh wow, these are the golden years, I think, in many regards. And as one of the prior panelists said, Charlotte is well poised for lots of reasons to take advantage of the golden age, just in terms of great talent, great expertise, the opportunity for mentorship, the opportunity to try. Entrepreneurs try a number of things and they do fail. Those in the room that are entrepreneurs, don't be discouraged if your first or second or third ideas fail, because the fourth might hit and it might hit big. So I think right now there's like great opportunities to test your idea out, do your proof of concept, figure out if it's going to work. If it fails, just pivot or actually adjust the idea. There's money out there for investment. There's money out there for partnerships and things of that nature. So, I mean, act quickly and take advantage, because I think this is really the golden age. I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to work with a bigger company, and then bigger companies, don't be afraid to work with the smaller companies to actually address the gap. The call is to action, and we just can't talk about innovation. We really have to start putting things out there. What I think is a mistake is bigger companies are letting some of the smaller companies do that without getting fully engaged. And I think there's a lot of room for us all to work together to solve customer problems.
That is such a good note to end on, Colleen. I really appreciate you being here, and I want to thank you all for being here as well.
That's
and with
great.
that, well.